Hello and welcome to Maximum Disc, a show where I celebrate physical media and talk about films that I own on Blu Ray and 4K Blu Ray. I'm James Adamson. I'm a co-host on the Double Reel Film Podcast. If you like this chat about physical media, please do check out Double Reel. It's a magazine-style podcast made by people who love the movies as much as you do. We think any episode you listen to will contain a bunch of great recommendations of things to watch instead of just doing whatever the algorithm tells you. That's the sales pitch for the podcast. Now we're talking about physical media. Why does it matter? As I often say at the start of these things, I talked about it in more detail in the first ever episode when I reviewed Civil War. But short version, if you care about a film, you need to own it. You can't rely on the streamers to have what you're looking for. Obviously, they have a lot, but sometimes a specific thing, they don't have it. You're at the mercy of rights, arguments, and takeovers and mergers. Will the streaming version they have, will it be the director's cut, the original version, or the true director's special edition that makes the film work? Probably not. And most importantly, it won't look and sound its best on a compressed internet file being sent down, a pipe to your television instead of on a really nicely constructed disc in a case on your shelf to watch whenever you want. Hopefully you're a convert to that already, and that's why you've clicked on this to delve into physical media with me. So every episode is just one film that I own. I talk about, obviously, the audio and the video. Is it a good transfer, representative of the original film and all that sort of thing? What sort of workout does it give your home cinema system? But I also like to talk about, how I came to have a relationship to this film, why it matters to me, why I came to love it, own it, all of that. And when I round it up at the end, I will sort of lend my thoughts on whether I think it's, something you should add to your collection, which is just my opinion, but hopefully it'll help you if you're considering it yourself. So today we're talking about The Green Knight on 4K Blu Ray. This film came out in 2021 and it was written and directed by David Lowery. He's an American filmmaker, been active for about, 10, 15 years now. He seems to specialize in sort of two things, sort of more art house or independent films with like obscure hidden meanings that some people think are artistic gems and others think like The Emperor's New Clothes. But he's also done a couple of Disney live action remakes, Peter Pan and Wendy and Pete's Dragon, which are quite standard stuff. And I don't know if that's his, one for them, one for me type thing, or whether that's just something he's interested in doing. This is the only one of his more art house offerings, The Green Knight, that I've watched. And I think he falls into the category of Robert Eggers, where the number of people who absolutely love what he does and the number of people who dislike what he does are like about equal. And I'm never quite sure. It's hard, but I should just watch it, right? That's the whole meaning of the podcast that I do. But, sometimes you feel like you want to catch it at the right moment, that sort of thing. But with The Green Knight, I was pretty more eager to watch it, mainly because I love anything to do with the legends of King Arthur. And I'm, promising myself, publicly that I'm going to try some of his other stuff eventually. But The Green Knight of his, I engaged with immediately. This film is based on the Arthurian legend, which has been filmed several times before. So often we talk about, what the source material is. There are multiple, folk tales. There's the Mort d'Arthur, which was also the basis for Excalibur. Various books on Arthurian legend. And while Gawain, I used to think it was Gawain, but it's actually Gawain, has been portrayed in a variety of ways. His quest to meet the Green Knight has always been very strange and odd and fantastical. In terms of the cast, you've got Dev Patel as Gawain, Sean Harris as King Arthur, and Kate Dickie as Queen Guinevere, although they're not named, they're just called the King and Queen. Sarita Chowdhury plays Gawain's mother, who may not have been merged with Morgana Le Fay, the famous antagonist of the tales. Also Ralph Ineson, Alicia Vikander, Joel Edgerton, Barry Keoghan, and some of these characters, if you say too much about them, it's a plot spoiler, but let's just say there are people with quite key roles in this film. There are people, characters keep popping up in different settings, and if I say any more than that, I would spoil the plot, so I won't say any more. The cinematography is by Andrew Droz Palermo, who I hadn't heard of before watching this film. He worked on mostly independent films, including a couple for Lowery, and then he had a go with the MCU with Thunderbolts, but I'm principally known from this film. The sound is by the usual large team, but the leading members who got mentioned in awards nominations were Carl Merrin and Johnny Marshall. The score is by Daniel Hart. Again, I only really know him from his collaborations with Lowry, although when I read his Wikipedia page, he has scored films for other people, done some TV work as well. He also releases music with a couple of bands and as a solo artist and is a classical violinist. The score includes the usual mixture of cues, which are kind of orchestral and sound effects, the way modern scores are these days, but also features music that has like a very medieval feel to it, and some songs which either are traditional songs which they've reproduced here, or songs meant to sound like they are, to definitely give that medieval feel. Lots of minstrel type songs. In terms of awards and nominations, this film was completely ignored by the Oscars. I mean, it was a weird time. It was in the middle of COVID. But I still think it's very strange that in a quiet year, and given what this film provides, it wasn't even considered in visual effects, production design, costume design, where it's obviously very strong. In my humble opinion, it was the best film of that year. So I think it was unjustly ignored at the major awards ceremonies. I think it should have been contention for direction, acting, script, score, everything. It did get quite big representation at various of the independent awards, festivals, critic societies, international, festivals and awards that are given out. Strong showing in the Chicago Society of Film Critics, strangely enough. Again, it's hard to make too many sort of conclusions on anything that came out in 2021 because it was a very strange time. But it does feel like this is one of those films that wasn't allowed to break out of the festival and art house enclosure into like the bigger awards, which tend to sort of reward more mainstream films. Quick summary of what the film's about. It is set in the time of King Arthur, but when the king and queen are older, so are all the great knights, and all the great adventures have already happened. It's kind of after the big party, basically. Gawain is the king's nephew by his sister, who is also a sorceress. These details vary by version of the Gawain myth. It's probably different to T.H. White's Once and Future King, different to John Boorman's Excalibur, but that's who he is in this. He's not yet a knight and has had no adventures, quests or wars. There's nothing really going on for him to go out and prove himself, or fail to prove himself. As you quickly see, he's not seemingly the heroic type. He's wasting his life drinking every night. He's very dissolute, wakes up, just about anywhere. He's in a relationship with a woman from the town who is probably a sex worker, but in any event, a commoner, back when being a commoner sort of mattered. One Christmas at the Great Feast in Camelot, a mysterious, fantastical Green Knight comes to, sort of gate crashes the Christmas party, as it were, and proposes a game. He invites anyone to a kind of duel where they can strike any blow on him that they like, so long as in a year's time, next Christmas, the Green Knight can strike the exact same blow on them. Gawain senses the opportunity to make a name for himself, borrows the sword Excalibur from the king, leaps over the table and takes on the challenge. Despite the warnings from King Arthur, remember it's just a game, he chops the Green Knight's head clean off. Unfortunately for Gawain, that doesn't kill the Green Knight. He's clearly some sort of magical creature. He looks like a tree. You can talk, basically. The Green Knight picks up his head, announces he'll be waiting for Gawain next Christmas, and walks out. A year later, Gawain has to set out to face the Green Knight and possibly lay down his life. He spends the year sort of not really, pretending it's not there, but eventually he has to get out and go. On the journey to the Green Knight's chapel, he's beset by mysterious and magical events, antagonists, allies, unlikely allies, magical creatures like giants and a talking fox, and he heads through a strange land that looks pretty desolate, actually, to face his fate. There's a suggestion that the whole event may have been set up by his mother's magic, and she may be controlling or at least influencing events all the way through. There's also a hint that the dark and terrifying world he falls into maybe more about him facing up to himself and his sort of failings and his need to sort himself out if he wants to make anything of his life and become a knight, rather than any sort of external adversary. So, who is the Green Knight, or what is the Green Knight? So my background with the film is it's 2021. There are not many films out. They did open things up in the summertime, and you could go to the cinema. I would have gone to pretty much anything I was doing the podcast by then. I need something to talk about. I love films. I wanted to be going out to the cinema. But I was also fascinated and intrigued by this premise. I remember seeing the 1970s version of the story and being compelled by it, even though that's not a very good version. So I went to see this film, I think knowing what to expect, knowing it would be set in the time of King Arthur, medieval fantasy, knowing that the Green Knight is a very offbeat, strange tale. It's not all action and battle. So I kind of knew what I was getting into. Although this is a very sort of particular version of the story that Lowry's done. I ended up absolutely loving it. It's my favourite film from Arthurian legend, apart from Excalibur, obviously. John Boorman's Excalibur in 1981 is absolutely head and shoulders above everything else, but I absolutely love this almost as much. I loved being caught up in this kind of different world where the dawn of the New Age has happened, and we have a kind of uniting of the land under the Christian God, but the old magic is still all around them, and the earth and spirit still exert like this strange and terrifying power. Giants walk the land. There is magic, there is reality and myth are kind of merging with each other. I've always loved that, which is why the 1980s TV show Robin of Sherwood is my favourite version of Robin Hood, because it taps into the same thing. The old pagan magic is still there through Merlin and through this kind of sense of strange and unsettling magic throughout the world of Arthur. It's also filmed in Ireland, which remind me of John Boorman's film. I loved all the performances, especially Dev Patel at the heart of it. I loved the theme of a flawed would-be hero trying to make his name after the age of heroes is basically over, and he keeps being confronted by his own weakness and selfishness. He keeps failing to act like a heroic knight, but every time he falls down, he gets back up again, either because he's got nowhere else to go or because he does genuinely want to achieve something. And when he finally faces the Green Knight, he has this amazing moment of truth where he could be a hero or it could be self-interest, and everything rests on the choice he makes next. The whole film's full of weirdness, magic and atmosphere. It's very open to interpretation. The ending is very open to interpretation. And I was just absolutely caught up in this movie. Absolutely love it. It's one of my favourite films of the last kind of 20 years. Absolutely adore it. So let's talk about the disc. It is a steelbook, and my reaction to getting this steelbook is the same as my reaction every time, which is when it arrives, you go, oh, a steelbook, and it's very exciting. And then afterwards, I remember why I don't actually like steelbooks all that much, because I do like the fact that the cover of a Blu-ray or a 4K Blu-ray's got the information on the film on it. It's got some of the stuff on the back. It's got, if someone won an Oscar, it's got some stuff about that. It's got the certificate on it. It's got all of that stuff. And that's on a piece of cardboard that you're supposed to throw away, and you're left with this blank. It's very sleek. It's very nicely designed, but yeah, I realised I don't like steelbooks as much as I like a nice basic case with a slip cover, really. And although it's a steelbook, it's not like a very fancy box set or anything. It has the film on 4K Blu-ray, everything on one disc. It's it's a very good disc. It's got enough space for everything, and it's got about just over an hour of special features, although that only breaks down to like 3 or 4 different things. There's some trailers, some making ofs, a bit of a documentary about bringing Arthurian legend to life. If the extras are your thing, you might want to look for something that's got a bit more. This was fine for me because I'm more about the film. And I wonder if because this film didn't make a huge impression at the box office, it is like a lesser known King Arthur film. Maybe they haven't kind of leaned into the kind of cult film, fill it full of features version. I'm just grateful that it got a physical media release, because it seemed to go straight onto Amazon Prime, and I was a little bit worried that we wouldn't get any physical media of it at all. So grateful that it exists. The steelbook cover is nice, despite my shortcomings about that. It's a decent disc, and the film is fine, represented fine. Now for the video. So the film was shot on digital 6.5K, so higher resolution than 4K. It was very easy for them to create a 4K master to put that on physical media. It's very common for films to be shot on digital these days. In fact, it's probably less common for them to be shot on film. When Nolan comes out and insists on shooting his films on IMAX on film, and when Sinners and One Battle After Another are shot on older film formats, everyone's really excited. Digital is kind of the default nowadays. But this is good quality digital. It's not like the digital of about 10, 15 years ago where you had to upscale it to get any 4K out of it. It's in a 1:8:1 aspect ratio, which, look, cards on the table. I need to look these things up myself when I'm doing them. I don't know these things off by heart, but 1851 is a format which it's still cinematic and wide, but it's very tall. The Terminator, for example, from 1984 was shot in this ratio. It seemed almost square at the cinema when I watched it, but that could have been a projection error sort of by the cinema. At home on physical media, it means the image absolutely fills the screen of your TV with no black strips across the top or bottom, nothing on the side either. Fully, fills the screen. Where that really works best is on the great halls with high ceilings, looming buildings, giants, anything large that's or anyone being shot from to make them look bigger. You get a really tall picture. Tall trees in the forest are great. In terms of the actual quality of the video itself, I think it's absolutely gorgeous. Sometimes digital can look very plain, but they've treated this image really nicely to make it look cinematic. I listened to an interview with David Cronenberg where he says if you take care with the digital image, you can still make it look like a movie if you really want to. I know there are purists, but this looks beautifully cinematic. Ireland looks stunning as it always does, but it looks otherworldly because it's standing in for the magical world of old, the old British Isles. You get beautiful bright colours that contrast with darkness at times. The blacks are very nicely done. It's quite a dark film at times, but you can see everything. And the colours that you'd see often contrast with the landscape. While sometimes the landscape is bathed in sunlight, it's quite often cloudy and desolate. And that contrast of colours is really beautifully picked out. It's not just all grey. It's really alive. The costumes, the nature, the trees, the hills, the mountains, it's absolutely gorgeous. And that's a combination of the making good use of the locations, but also of that earthy medieval world just being brought to life. When someone rolls around covered in mud on the battlefield, they get up and it's full of skin tones and colour. It's really good stuff. In terms of the sound, the sound is really good. Like I say, this isn't a King Arthur film that's full of like battles and hoofbeats, although there are some battle sounds and rumblings at key moments in the film in which the mix is very good for and makes full use of your sound system. But it's often about like the magical sound effects, the eerie sort of atmosphere which the music adds to. The soundscape for this film has been designed to immerse you in a magical world. There is always something going on with the sound, and the audio travels to all four corners of the room to get you there. It's an Atmos mix. It's really well mixed. It's as powerful as it needs to be. The music is often the most powerful thing in it. The score, the sort of orchestral or sound effects score bits really hit hard, and which needs the sound mix to be up there with the best. There's also, like I mentioned, medieval style music and folk singing, which really helps set the tone. And quite often you'll have like a silence or a very quiet moment of the film, which is accompanied by this folk music, and it's really clear. And it's important to use that music in the right way. It builds a kind of unsettling atmosphere, kind of like the maypole singing in The Wicker Man. It's beautiful. It represents lilies and flowers and people dancing in streams. But it's also one of the things that evokes that feeling of dark, fell, unsettling, scary magic under the surface of this world that says it's the time of King Arthur and those magic and monsters still out there. There's also this extraordinary scene where giants walk through a valley, which the stunning footsteps and their vocalizing is really beautifully done as well. So nice sound as well. So overall, this is a really good package. The film is well done. It's a really good representation of what I saw at the cinema. Better maybe because I think the cinema might have screwed up the projection. The film itself, I think, is an absolutely masterful film. It's it's weird, full of magic and strangeness, and the pacing is slow. But I found that it really drew me in. It's mysterious and enigmatic. It's similar to something like Tarkovsky's Stalker, which I've talked about on the pod, but also on here, and Annihilation, where these films plunge their characters into a world which seems to be inexplicable, but actually it reflects back on the character's own struggles, and the deliberate pace I thought was really hypnotic and lets the stories and ideas really sink in. So, this belongs in the same world as Alex Garland, Tarkovsky, people who want to almost kind of hypnotize you into being sort of really caught up in the world. It's beautiful to look at. It sounds great. It repays multiple viewings because there's lots of imagery and themes. You watch the giant sequence for the third or fourth time and you see other like nuances to it, nuances to like the things like the fox that follows him around and all the different kind of the characters, and There's a lot of scenes and stories which represent something and allowed to make your own mind up. And in this world, you sort of sink into it, you fall into it and fall into it. Also, the final sequence is absolutely outstanding. All the way the Green Chapel, he faces the Green Knight, past, present, future all collide in this really powerful sort of moment of truth for Gawain, Garwin, and it's absolutely stunning. It's fantastic. Possibly not for everyone. I do think some people are going to sit down and watch a film about King Arthur and expect to see more action, which you don't get. Some people might want a faster pace, which you don't get. And look, it's legitimate to think a film is too slow and too strange and leaves too many things unexplained. It's that kind of movie. I absolutely loved it. Maybe I wouldn't have loved it as much if it wasn't about King Arthur and one of the King Arthur legends that I love the best. But this worked for me, and I think it's an absolutely beautifully made film, which comes across really well on this 4K Blu-ray. Should you add this to your collection? My hesitation is because I do know this is exactly the sort of film that some people aren't going to be sort of keen on. Its IMDb rating is under 7, which means some people have watched it and gone, fuck's this, and not really sort of connected with it. I think it's absolutely stunning. I think anyone who loves slower paced, strange films that build this crazy world around a central character, if you love Stalker and Annihilation, you'll definitely love this. If you like the sort of the stranger, weirder side stories of the King Arthur legend, this is frankly as good as it gets. If you like sort of medieval fantasy, it's really going to come down to whether you like the strangeness and the pacing. But I mean, look, I would recommend it. It's there on Amazon Prime to watch, so give it a watch. So there's me slagging off streaming, but streaming doesn't enable you to watch this movie without spending any money and then decide if you want to, shell out on the Blu-ray. If you do like it, buy it on physical media because it'll repay that investment and it'll repay like a lifelong relationship for you if this is your kind of movie. Okay, well, that's The Green Knight. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. I really enjoyed talking to you about it. There are plenty of other episodes for you to watch. Please dig into the channel and see the various other films that we've done. Also, if you like this chat about physical media, I'll say once again, please do check out the podcast and ways to find us. The podcast and our socials will be on the screen in a moment. But in any event, I hope to see you for more physical media chat sometime soon, right here on Maximum Disc. The Maximum Disc YouTube channel is brought to you by Double Reel, the monthly magazine podcast for the discerning film nerd. If you like our celebration of physical media, please check out the podcast for more chat about the films we love and hate.